Andrea, I want to start off the podcast. Thanks for having us at your restaurant, Barcito.
Thanks for coming.
This is awesome. Been here a couple times before, really like it, and we're in downtown Los Angeles. But I want to start off, just tell everybody about yourself and the restaurant. Just a quick overview, and then we'll get into everything else.
Yeah, sure. So we're kind of a cafe and cocktail bar here in downtown Los Angeles, corner 12th and Grand, a couple blocks from the Staples Center. Basically kind of focus on coffee, sandwiches, and salads during the day, more kind of bar bites and cocktails, wine, and beer at night. Families from Argentina, so a little bit of that kind of Latin inspiration.
Cool.
With a lot of our dishes as well. And
my sister-in-law is Argentinian too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. Have you been?
Yeah. No, I haven't been.
Right.
But some of the food though, I get.
Got to put it on your list.
Yeah. No. So whenever I'm visiting them, we get the food. It's awesome food.
Yeah, very Spanish, very Italian. I think kind of really approachable, and we're really a neighborhood spot. That's super important to us,
Cool.
and so
Cool.
place where you can go once a week.
So when did you open this restaurant then?
We opened in September of 2015.
Okay. So 2015, 4 years now, coming up on 4 years almost exactly. What have you been seeing in downtown? A lot of change?
So much change, more change than I can keep up with. Especially in this district where we are, it's called South Park. It's kind of what most people talk about when they talk about the development and the resurgence of downtown. It's just cranes as far as the eye can see.
Yep.
We've had street closures and blockages and all
Yep.
kinds of dust and nonsense happening for a majority of the time that we've been here. A lot of that's starting to open, and they're mostly residential complexes that have filled with residents.
Okay.
So that's been really exciting. And
Have you noticed the change over time from 2013 till now, or has it been pretty steady though? In 2013, I went to law school downtown at Loyola Law School right across the freeway in 2003, and even the difference between that, there was nothing downtown up until 2007, 2008, saw a lot of change and everything, but now this is amazing.
Yeah,
Everything that's
absolutely.
around.
I think South Park is still figuring itself out a little bit in terms of the retail really filling out. All these buildings have opened, the retail is still kind of taking its time.
Yeah.
But the rest of downtown, what's happened the last 4 years has been nuts. We have Whole Foods, we have Modern Times, we have all these breweries, we have all these brand new restaurants and hotels. The Nomad opened. So that's been really exciting to kind of be a part of. We're a little far flung from some of that stuff, but it definitely impacts us, and we get a little bit of overflow from it.
But I saw the electric scooters out front.
Oh, that's huge. I love that.
Has
I know
changed?
it's a little controversial, but
I bet it helps.
But I think, especially for a district that is
Right.
a little further flung, it's not quite as dense in terms of restaurants and bars to go to. It definitely helps people kind of decide to take that extra 4 blocks and go somewhere that maybe they haven't tried before.
You don't have to drive.
Or that they wouldn't have walked to on their own.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool. So where did you grow up? Starting from the basics.
Yeah, I grew up in Los Angeles. So I grew up in Glendale, La Cañada. Parents still live in La Cañada.
Cool. Is your family in the restaurant industry?
No, not at all. Both of my parents work for the Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
Oh, yeah?
So
Cool.
they're computer science folks.
Oh, okay, very cool.
A little different than restaurants.
Yeah. So how did you get into the industry? Well, so your school, I know you went to Santa Clara.
Sure did.
I went to LMU, so we won't hold that against you.
All right.
So what did you study in college?
Business management with a minor in international business.
So did you have any interest in restaurants at that point? Or?
Yeah, I think kind of like a lot of people, started with a passion for kind of food and beverage, and that really excited and inspired me. And kind of as I was, nearing my senior year and trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do, I started to kind of look for opportunities in the industry, and I sort of got lucky in that Hillstone Restaurant Group did a lot of recruiting out of my university, and I met with a rep from them and just kind of fell in love with how they do things. They basically hire entry-level graduates to become a manager in training, and they have this really intensive kind of 2-3 month process where you spend a week in every single position in the restaurant.
Cool.
And I basically ended up taking a job with them right out of school.
Okay.
And
did you work in a restaurant in college or anything?
So,
like that?
It's kind of funny. I started my interview process with them, and that was the question that they always asked me, and the answer was no. Anytime I'd kind of gone in, no one wanted to hire anyone without any experience.
Right.
And I was also a full-time college student that didn't have the most open flexibility or hours. And actually, before they hired me, I ended up working for about 4 months as a hostess at one of their locations. partially because my application process was on hold because of something else that was going on. And just loved it. Just loved the pace and loved the environment and how professional that restaurant group was, and
Awesome.
and was excited to join them.
So that was in New York then, right?
That was in Santa Clara.
Oh,
so
Santa Clara, okay.
yeah, so I was a senior at Santa Clara at the time, and I worked at the Los Altos Grill in Los Altos.
Okay, and then you went to New York at some point then, right?
Yeah, so they kind of require complete openness to relocation. So they actually sent me to South Florida originally.
Yeah.
I did my training at their Coral Gables location, which is a suburb outside of Miami. Ended up graduating my MIT program, staying on as the beverage manager at that location, which is one of the highest grossing locations.
Wow.
Like $50,000 a day in sales.
Wow.
Pretty nuts.
Yeah.
And then went over to Pompano Beach for a little bit, and then I ended up in kind of the greater New York area, New Jersey, and then I eventually ended up on Park Avenue with them.
Cool. Well, yeah, what those locations or areas, what did you like the best? Which
Park,
one did you like?
Park
yeah?
for sure.
Just the busiest?
No, Park was the slowest out of the four.
Huh.
But I think, the clientele was a little bit more my speed as opposed to South Florida and New Jersey. There were a lot fewer guests that we had to call 911 as our first line of defense the second they walked in the door, so that was nice.
Yeah.
And I think just kind of the hustle and bustle of Manhattan was really fun. And just kind of navigating that environment was a really interesting experience.
So how long were you at that location then?
That particular location, I was probably only there about 4 or 5 months. I worked for the restaurant group about 2 years total, and I kind of split my time between the 4 that I worked at.
Okay.
So it was like 4 to 6 months at each location.
Okay. And then what happened after that? Where'd you go next?
Yeah, I went to go work for Danny Meyer's restaurant group. Basically started out as the service manager at the Blue Smoke in Battery Park City.
Okay. How did you make that transition? Were you looking for that?
Yeah, I was looking to leave. So
Okay.
I was kind of ready for whatever was next. I wanted to go somewhere a little bit more employee and kind of culture focused. I think Hillstone's really systems and efficiency focused, and I wanted to kind of learn the other end of the spectrum a little bit.
Okay.
And, had read Setting the Table,
Danny
had drank the
Meyer's
Kool-Aid
group,
a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good place to go
and I
for
really
the
loved the
culture.
idea of working for his group. I was in Manhattan at the time. It kind of felt like the direction to go in, and I even just loved the interview process and all the folks that I met with through that, and was really excited to join them.
Cool. So how long were you with the Danny Meyer group then?
That was also about 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what did you do after that? What was
I took some time off.
Okay. Did you always have this idea too? You're going to start your own at some point?
I think, it was always in the back of my head. It's a little easier said than done, but I think I always kind of liked that idea, and it definitely felt like something I wanted to do sooner rather than later. I think owning a restaurant is definitely a young person's game. And so I actually ended up taking some time off. I did a lot of backpacking. I backpacked South America and Southeast Asia, and kind of made my way back to Los Angeles, and took a bartending gig and started to just kind of get to work on my business plan and whatever was going to happen next.
Okay, cool. So then that's when you basically had the idea you want to start your own then? You came back to LA?
Yeah, exactly.
And then how long did that process take then from planning? You came back to LA, did you start working on a business plan, or where did you start? How did that process work out, and how long did that take?
Yeah, I think it was probably on and off about a year and a half-ish. It's tough because I kind of was traveling for part of it too. I wrote most of my business plan in Southeast Asia, which is kind of funny. And yeah, I basically started with the business plan and kind of let it grow legs from there.
Cool. And then did you always know you wanted to be downtown then, or how did that come about?
Not necessarily. I think I really liked the idea of being in an urban environment where folks can kind of walk by. I always wanted to be a really neighborhood-oriented spot, and so I didn't really think people would necessarily be paying $10, $15 in valet parking or parking in general to come eat here. I didn't want to be a destination. I wanted to be somewhere where there was going to be a decent amount of foot traffic, a lot of public transportation, kind of the infrastructure set up for the concept that I had in mind. So I was looking all over kind of east and northeast Los Angeles. So whether it was Silver Lake, Highland Park, a lot of downtown, a lot of the Arts District, Yeah.
Did you have a mentor or some help in planning and setting it up and going through the process?
I definitely reached out to a few different people. I don't know there was consistently one person that I kind of went back to over and over again, but I think definitely fostered some really great relationships over the course of my career, or even just met through friends of friends. And so certainly, I was not trying to just do this by myself at the age of 26.
You had the great experience, though, working at some established concepts and picking up some good habits and bad habits. That's pretty key. But for somebody that's thinking about taking the jump and starting their own restaurant, what's like the primary thing they have to think about first, and how do they get started? And how do they get started on it?
Oh man, I mean it's tough because I think there's so many like chicken egg situations. I think you definitely need to build something or a concept that you're going to be really excited and passionate about, and that's going to take you through all the hard times that you're going to face, because you're going to face a lot of hard times and a lot of setbacks. And then I think, when it comes to next starting to figure out a location, also making sure that fit is going to be right.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people don't necessarily take the time that they need to really analyze a neighborhood and really understand, hey, would this work here? Will the community support it? Will they pay the prices that I want to charge?
Yeah.
And then, come things like the lease and how much the lease is going to impact the success of your business.
Yep.
I think there's a pretty long flow chart I could probably build out if I had to, but I think those are the three kind of really big things to think about, at least when you're first starting out.
Cool. And so your business background helped with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I
but,
think so.
Even being a lawyer, though, like the leasing and all that, I mean, it gets complex fast.
Oh,
I'm sure
totally.
For a restaurant in downtown in this building, I'm sure it's pretty complex. You relied on some lawyers helping on that?
Absolutely.
Through that process?
An expense that I decided to swallow.
Yeah. No,
and it's important. I think I would have had a much tougher time had I not gone that route.
Yeah. No, it's amazing too. With my clients, the restaurant operators, it's amazing everything that you guys have to know to run a restaurant. And I call my clients on the employment law issues. They're talking like an employment lawyer. They know the ins and outs of meal and rest breaks, how to pay employees, and then leases. I mean, it's insane the amount of knowledge that you guys have to pull this off.
Yeah, you got to wear a lot of hats. That's for sure.
So how do you keep up with all that? And how do you learn? Do you jump in and just start figuring it out as you go?
Yeah, you learn it. I've learned how to plumb things. I've learned how to deal with electrical things. I'm trying to figure out how to put my espresso machine back together right now.
Okay.
And I think, you kind of have to have the personality for it a little bit too, because it is not fun work a lot of the time. And again, that kind of passion and drive for the concept or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve has to be the driving force. Otherwise it gets really laborious really quickly.
No, I hear you on that. And being an entrepreneur though, I wear a lot of hats too, but that's what keeps it fun for me though. If you told me as a lawyer, like sit down and just take depositions all day or write memos or briefs all day, 3 months into it you get kind of bored.
I totally agree with that.
Change things up, and you're wearing a lot of different hats, and it's amazing what you have to do. And I'm sure it's even worse running a restaurant. But that's some of the excitement, though, I think.
Yeah, of course. And I think it takes a certain personality, right? Like you kind of have to be the right fit for this
ready to move,
industry and for this kind of a role. But it's a blast every day. It's a lot of different problems, and some of them are funner to solve than others. But it's definitely really rewarding.
So prior to this, we were talking a little bit about culture in the restaurant, and I've been fascinated with that concept lately and thinking a little more about it. And it's such this like gray area that everybody talks about. It's so important to have a good culture. But one, do you agree with that? And then two, what's your, how do you think it's important? And then how do you go about establishing a culture? And what's the key? Like, what's your vision on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really amorphous word. And so that's kind of where it gets really tricky, right?
Yeah.
And so, we've actually kind of adopted something that's really a Danny Meyer sort of philosophy. It's called enlightened hospitality. And we make it really clear to all of our employees as they're going through the onboarding process that, as a business, we make decisions in sort of an order of importance. And And, our number one priority is to take care of our employees. That is always number one, and we kind of believe that everything else follows. And so, whether it's guests, vendors, the community at large, and then finally our shareholders, we believe that everyone else will be taken care of if we, number one, focus on the employee experience.
Okay.
And, I think we've talked a little bit about what that can kind of look like, but, I think you can talk the talk all you want, but you also have to be able to walk the walk and have something to show for it. And so when we talk about the employee experience, we talk about stable hours, we talk about stable schedules. Everyone kind of knows on a week-to-week basis exactly when they're going to be working. Hey, I'll probably work 30 hours this week. This is how much money I'll probably make, more or less.
Yep. Predictability with that.
We provide health insurance for all of our full-time employees. We were, implementing a no tipping model for quite some time to help with some of that stability. We've since sort of switched over to a model in which we share our tips with both the front and the back of house, because everyone's wage would kind of rise. And so we made it really clear to our employees, hey, I've been looking at the numbers and I've decided that I want to make this change because this is how it'll affect you and this is my number one priority. And I think every day kind of using that rhetoric and really driving it home, like, this is what we care about and this is how we make our decisions.
Yeah. Very cool. And on the tipping issue, since you brought that up too, I know you've got strong feelings about that, and then you guys went to the no tipping policy and then just recently came back to the tipping policy. How was that, the change with the employees? Well, changing to no tipping and then coming back, have they understood it?
Changing to no tipping, I think, wasn't necessarily challenging, but it took a lot of legwork. And I definitely spent a solid 6 months really doing my due diligence, research, involving my employees in that process before we decided to do it, because it was unknown. We were one of the few places doing it. We were probably one of the only places in Los Angeles doing it at the time. And so that was not necessarily challenging, but a very exhaustive, long process.
Yeah.
And, it served us really well for the last 3 years. I think, again, in terms of just creating a lot of stability for my employees, they basically took part in a revenue share model as opposed to working for night-to-night tips. We were able to implement health insurance as a result of that. We were able to pay our back-of-house wages that felt a little bit more responsible than what we were paying them before. And in my decision to go back to a regular tipping model, we certainly continue to engage our employees in those conversations, but it was a much easier conversation to have. I think especially from the guest standpoint, now we're all of a sudden just like everyone else as opposed to trying to become the outlier. And so the switch back was almost too easy.
Okay.
It was almost like annoying how easy it was to switch back.
But so, and the idea behind it too, correct me if I'm wrong, is that it was, with the law change, in 2018, the back of the house could be included with the tip pool or within tips. You could distribute those tips more evenly and then catch the back of the house up with the front of the house, right?
And or at least bridge the gap a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think for me to eliminate tipping in the first place, part of the reason was just the inequity between the front and the back. And as I saw minimum wage continue to rise, I just saw that inequity gap getting bigger and bigger, probably to a point of no return. And that really scared me. And I thought that the back of a house deserved a bit more of their fair share. It's a team-oriented environment, and they were getting left behind in that system. And so now that the laws have changed, it felt like time to bring them back in and create even more equity and better wages across the entire team.
So coming back to the culture issue, so that's interesting. Focus on the employees first, and that's not the instinct of a lot of operators, I don't think.
Definitely
it's one
not,
focus on the customer.
Absolutely.
And the customer experience. So that's interesting. And so, it's so the benefits, hours, predictability, things like that. Anything else you're doing towards the employees to convey that message?
I think it's also just kind of the day-to-day environment that we work in, and how do we handle it when someone gets sick, and how do we handle it when someone wants to go on vacation, and we all kind of, it is again really team-oriented. We all pitch in and make sure that person can take the day off or go on vacation because they're going to need to cover our back, the next time it happens to us. And I think part of it too is a little bit of just kind of trust and empowering your employees to make decisions and to have their back. And, you know, it's not a model that works 100% of the time. I certainly make mistakes, but I think at least in an environment where I have, you know, 10, 11, 12 employees and I need to take days off, it's really important that they also feel like they're invested in the success of the business. And so I think all these things are kind of a virtuous cycle.
Okay, yeah. So in being a smaller operator with like 12 employees, what do you think is the most important thing that you focus on? Or is there one important thing for like the operation of the business that takes up, or maybe takes up the most amount of your time too, that you feel like that's your primary job?
Yeah, I don't know if this is the right answer that you're looking for, but I think at least for us, in order to be able to operate with so few employees, we need to be really systems oriented. And so that was something that I learned a lot from Hillstone.
Okay.
And that starts at initial hire and hiring the right people that are going to fit kind of the model and environment and philosophy of your business, and really backing it up with an incredible training program and making it super comprehensive and thorough, and having the systems in place that you can train people so that, you know, we can do a $5,000 night with 2 bartenders and a manager on. And it's really the only way that we're able to accomplish what we do on a day-to-day basis.
And when you say systems, like for the hiring, is that documented? Do you have like a checklist of things of hiring, or is it more of a idea that's you convey to everybody else?
It's more like operational systems. And I think kind of ways that we run our pass, ways that we run our service bar.
Do you
there's kind
document
of a
it?
rule for everything. It's in the training manual. So it's pretty clear, and we make it, you know, steps of service. And you know, when you greet a table, you put down coasters so that we're not asking each other, hey, did that table get greeted? I mean, kind of every step of the guest experience has some sort of system attached or rule attached to it.
And so that goes through hiring too for the employees. Do you have that, or is that more of a kind of a concept that you convey?
I think hiring the right person who's going to thrive in an environment where, you know, you don't have a busser, you don't have a runner, you don't have a bar back. So it's definitely got to be someone that is going to fit your environment and be excited about it and have fun.
And being downtown LA, most of your employees, do you get them from the area here downtown? Do you have any employees that commute? Have you noticed that changing over time?
It's a little all over the place. So both. I have some people who drive in, some people who take public transportation. So it's all over the map. I can't say that I've seen any trends really related to that.
Cool. Great. And then, so if somebody's looking to start a business, what's the primary thing they need to keep in mind? You said there's some setbacks too and difficulties that they're going to have to deal with. What's been the hardest part for you, and that was kind of unexpected too, in starting your own restaurant and operating?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the day that you ask me a little bit. I think navigating the city is really challenging. I think especially these days, unless you have a consultant or an expediter of some sort, it's just not something that you can do on your own. And so being prepared for what those fees look like and what those timelines look like.
And is that for opening or even once you're
all
running?
All of the above. I mean, I have a conditional use permit that I had to renew this year. It's taken me a year and a half. It's cost me $20,000, and I still don't have it. So that's just one example of like 12 that I could probably give you, whether it was in the opening process or in the continuing to exist process. But renovations, you know, all these things like really add up, and navigating that process is something that's definitely new to me. And just really tricky in the city of Los Angeles right now because they are incredibly understaffed and they are very overwhelmed.
So like an expediter helps on that? Have you been using one?
It's super expensive. And I hate to recommend that to someone, but unfortunately that is the system that we kind of are operating in right now.
And then how about the funding when you start a restaurant? Do you recommend somebody go out and get investors, get a loan, or how, you know?
Oh man, I don't know what I recommend. We basically kind of scrounged together some friends and family money and got an SBA loan to supplement that. And this was actually more or less a pretty low budget opening, all things considered. SBA loan is costing me a ton of money with a ton of interest.
Okay.
Looking back, I might have done things a little bit differently, but sometimes you also just kind of got to get your doors open and make a name for yourself and hope that the money will kind of follow.
Okay.
Again, I think it's sometimes a bit of a chicken or an egg situation where it's like investors are hesitant to come on if they haven't seen a lease and they haven't seen the space, and there's certain things that they're going to want before they come on board, and so
there's pros and cons, I guess, to both.
Totally,
you're going to have issues with investors as well.
I did it one way, but it's challenging, and that's one of the things that I'd say I'm less good at and have really, really strong answers for.
Okay.
And it's complex and really challenging.
Yep. What's your plan for Barcito? Do you have any plans to grow, or do you see yourself owning multiple restaurants in the future? Are you happy with one?
I mean, I'm pretty much on the floor like every day right now. So trying to imagine a future in which I don't have to do that sounds pretty cool. I'm a little hesitant to grow, at least in Los Angeles, as things kind of currently stand.
Okay. It's just the regulations. I mean, anything in particular? And we've got the increased minimum wage going on, but that's
I
is
think
that one issue.
Minimum
or is
wage.
it just...
I think rent. I think permitting. I think competition continues to increase and get more fierce. I have some concerns about saturation of restaurants versus density of residents and visitors, and I think that'll eventually even out, but it's not there yet.
Okay.
And so that, certainly concerns me a bit.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not in the headspace to be talking about more locations right now. Let's just put it that way.
You're super busy with one. Yeah. No, I hear you. And then for resources, for other operators that might be listening, what would you recommend for them to really help set up their restaurant, start a restaurant, and then continue to operate it too? Or has there been some key groups, key people, or research, resources out there that people can use? Or
I think anytime you can get multiple operators in a room, there's so much that comes out of that, whether it's, hey, do you have a great plumber? Or, hey, what did you do when this happened? And I found a lot of ways to foster that.
There's competition, though, on that?
I don't think so. I think we're all in the hospitality business. Right. We all want to see each other succeed, and if, I think a rising tide lifts all boats.
Okay.
If the 3 restaurants down the street are able to keep open and continue to succeed and drive more traffic to the neighborhood, that's a good thing.
Yep. And it's not like once a consumer goes to one restaurant, that's their restaurant that they go to.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think that's how people dine anymore.
No.
And so I certainly want to see more places open and more diversity of places, so that it becomes a really dynamic neighborhood. And so I think,
being in the industry, that's one thing that amazes me every time. Yeah, how you guys get along together and the networking on that and sharing and all of that. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think there are a few people who can quite appreciate what we do and what we see on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And so I think, the California Restaurant Association is certainly one of those groups. I think in downtown Los Angeles, the Central City Association is really incredible. And I think, even just going somewhere and introducing myself to someone has sprung up some really incredible relationships and friendships.
Just networking
and
with
things
other...
kind of happen organically a little bit too.
Yeah.
And then I think there's always, again, this kind of is on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis, but just kind of being really engaged in your local community. And so here, there's a business improvement district, and I go to all their board meetings, and I go to all their events, and I see the same people again and again. And I think any kind of networking that you can do, if you get the time off, is really helpful and really makes a dramatic impact.
Yeah, and I know it's harder for somebody like you, a smaller operator, to get out and do that networking when you have to be here running shifts and fixing the machines.
Yeah,
and
it's really
that.
hard, but it's just another hat you gotta wear.
Put it on there, and do it. Yep. Networking, and then I want to be mindful of your time too. How far are we into it? Yeah, a couple more questions.
Yeah.
So the networking is key, and I've seen the operators. It's crazy how much you guys share and network, but I think it's good, and you can learn a lot just being out there talking about the issues, attending different talks, seeing how people are dealing with the minimum wage and everything like that. And then how about marketing too? How do you market a restaurant like yours here in downtown LA? Is it word of mouth? Are you on social media?
I mean, it's all of the above, and I think marketing is also one of those things that kind of changes every single day, and your approach has to change every single day. And so, we definitely spend a lot of time with our Instagram account. That's kind of the primary social media tactic that we use.
What is your Instagram? You got to put a plug into it.
Yeah, it's Barcito LA.
Okay,
so
great. We'll put a link to it.
Tag me. And, we have an internal newsletter that we send out to all of our guests and regulars, and they can sign up for that either on our website or through our loyalty program, which is like integrated into our point of sale system.
Do you like the loyalty programs? That works pretty good?
I really like it. I was a little hesitant at first, but I think it's one of those things that guests really respond to and get excited about. And it really works.
Okay.
And I think it definitely captures a lot of information that we can then use to sort of market or promote new things, or our new patio, or our new happy hour, or whatever it is.
Cool.
And we have hired a PR firm as well.
Okay.
Which I've had both good and bad experiences. Right now I'm having a very good experience.
Yeah.
But I think especially in a place like downtown where there's so much competition, having kind of one extra person to sort of be in the ear of whether it's hotel concierges or the press or media at large, whatever you want to throw into that category.
Okay. Do
they
help with
you see some ROI on that.
Okay. Do they help with like social media too, or
they can, but it costs more money.
Yeah.
So right now we do it ourselves.
Okay. Then are you doing that, or you have somebody on staff?
Myself and our beverage manager kind of co-manage it. She does more of it than I do. But, but yeah, we kind of tackle it together.
Great. And then, so other than Instagram, any other social media, or what do you guys like? Really return on Instagram? That's where everybody is.
Facebook is kind of declining a bit. And then I think just kind of having a really beautiful, concise website that really paints a clear picture of who you are. We're on single platform as well, which I kind of found started to be an issue because a lot of digital platforms like Yelp and Google source really old information, and unless you spend the money for a single platform, they don't update your menus for you, which is really annoying.
Okay.
So we're using single platform, which I found has helped because we've had guests coming in asking for really old items on the menu at really different prices than what they are now.
Okay.
And I think, at the end of the day, it's about really consolidating and painting a very clear picture of your brand across all media.
Okay.
So online, Google, website, Yelp,
all of it,
Instagram, all of the above, and then obviously the in-house experience has to reflect that too. Those things have to match up. Right.
And then how about Yelp? How's your experience been on that? I've heard kind of mixed feelings, but I don't know. It's operators.
Overall, I found that it helps. Okay. It certainly continues to drive traffic, whether people want to believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I think that they've done a decent job of sorting through the reviews that really have no bearing, or they're kind of one-off guests that were really upset about something. And overall, I think Yelp paints a decent picture. It's not 100% accurate, and kind of how could it be?
And I think everybody's pretty sophisticated too, and they understand.
I
if
think
there's
it's pretty
one
easy
bad
to read
Yelp,
through a crazy ranting Yelper.
Right.
I think overall it's helped our business.
Okay. But Instagram's where everybody's at right now, though. That's your.
I think so.
Okay.
I think that's the platform where we drive more traffic.
And I've heard even new restaurants designing like the lighting and everything now for basically pictures of the food.
I hate that.
You do?
I mean, it just doesn't seem like where your priority should be, and I totally understand it from a marketing standpoint, and I think it's really smart. I just
think it
if
should
that's
be
your there are only so many things that you can really focus on when you're in a restaurant. You have so many things to do, so many things to think about. If your priority is what is Instagrammable, what are the chances that it's going to actually taste good, or be made with good ingredients, or be made consistently?
Right.
How do your employees feel about working there if you're not paying very much attention to them? I think there's, there are implications to some of those decisions that people make and priorities that they decide will rule their business.
Yep, no, that's a good point. So you don't have a focus on it, just if trying to make just the concept generally?
I mean, I think we
keep it
actually are
nice?
probably a pretty terrible place to take Instagram pictures because it's pretty dark here at night.
Yeah, okay.
So it's mostly kind of dark and moody
Yeah.
and candlelit, and so the pictures actually look pretty terrible usually.
Okay.
I mean, obviously you want the plates to look beautiful and consistent, and I think that's definitely something that's important. But
Okay.
if you're just creating food for Instagram, I don't
Not
know.
good.
I'm a
Yeah.
little suspicious of
No,
that.
that's good. I think that's a healthy suspicion. To wrap it up, what would you want to leave with the viewers and a lot of other operators that might be watching this? A main idea or a thought of the day that you want to share or anything like that to conclude?
Yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, we're just kind of at it in a really interesting climate, especially in the city of Los Angeles, with minimum wage going up, rents going up, and folks are just kind of scrambling to figure out how to continue to do business. And I think too many people are kind of focused on figuring out ways to continue to operate the old models that don't necessarily work. And I think, a tipping model where you're only tipping out your front of house is maybe one of those models, or a model where you have 3,000 square feet and 12 servers on and 3 bartenders and 10 people in the kitchen. And so I think right now it's really about getting really creative with how you sort of decide to scale your business, but also focusing on the employee. It's a really tight labor market. And so that, I think, kind of has to be your number one focus when you think about any business model or restaurant model that you're looking at, because that's going to make or break you. And so figuring out ways to incentivize people and create an industry where the career is really sustainable and really exciting, and you're going to be able to retain those folks and continue to have them build your brand, because that's the name of the game right now, I think.
Okay. Yeah. No, great thoughts. I appreciate you taking the time out to
Of
talk
course,
with me.
anytime.
And so the website, plug your website. What is your website?
www.barcitola.com.
And then it's Barcito LA on Instagram, right?
Correct.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for the time.
Of course, thank you.
Okay.